The Dallas Mavericks showed a lot of creativity offensively, moving Luka Doncic around in the half court in their victory over the Houston Rockets, who entered the game as one of the NBA's toughest defensive teams. Dillon Brooks took on the assignment of guarding Luka often, and the Mavericks really made him work fighting through screens, making the Rockets switch. They took advantage often targeting Alperen Şengün and also Fred VanVleet. And this was a game, again, where the defense tried to hide their center, which in this instance was Şengün on the 4 throughout the game. Instead of having him guard Derek Lively, Jabari Smith often took on that assignment to make the switch. And there's just a lot to like about how the Mavericks exploited just the general advantages that they had, tried to counter the Dillon Brooks matchup. And I'm just going to dive right into it, pointing out some of the specifics throughout the game. On this first possession, there are a couple key patterns that carried through, at least through the early portion of the game. Jabari Smith Jr. was guarding Derek Lively II, which is a continuation of some of the recent game planning efforts by other teams to have a big wing guarding Lively to make that initial switch, while they put a more slower-footed center on a different matchup to essentially try to hide that player. And in this instance, Alperen Şengün is that defender, and they often put him on in this particular part of the game, Grant Williams, and later on it would be other players like Derrick Jones Jr. Fred VanVleet, being an undersized guard, was another common target of the Mavericks' switch hunting efforts to get Luka Doncic a mismatch, and he begins this game with Kyrie Irving as his assignment. And notice on this first possession, the Mavericks have Luka play off ball with Dillon Brooks being the primary defender. The goal is to get him switched off. So what they do is they utilize a zoom action with Kyrie Irving as that screener in the off ball action, which gets Fred VanVleet switched onto Luka. And then Derek Lively makes the handoff, switching Jabari Smith onto Luka. And Smith's a versatile wing defender. You don't really want him to be the one guarding Luka on an island. If you can get him switched off, it would be ideal. So the Mavericks bring Grant Williams into the action for a quick ball screen to get Şengün switched onto Luka. Doncic, after drawing the switch, flows into a step-back 3, having space to get into the shot, with Şengün sagging off, trying to play the drive. The shot is offline as Şengün tries to make that contest, closing the space. And Lively is active on the offensive boards with Dillon Brooks trying to box him out and be physical with him. And Doncic stays active, cutting as he sees Lively coming up with this offensive rebound. And Şengün is out of position. But what happens is Jabari Smith makes a great help side rotation, pressures the finish at the rim, and Doncic misses and falls to the floor but doesn't get a foul call. The Mavericks are inbounding the ball on the baseline on this play. Luka Doncic is the passer, throws it to Derek Lively, and they flow into a middle pin down for Luka with Kyrie Irving setting the screen. The goal is to get VanVleet switched onto Luka, and Luka has to go get the ball. And this results in the handoff with Lively. And now Jabari Smith makes the switch. And the focus on this play is to read how the defense is going to react to the roll with a small guard being involved on the switch. This puts the defense in a compromised position unless they do what's called a scram switch, where mid-action the defense is making the judgment call to switch and have Dillon Brooks, who was responsible for helping at the nail, switch and account for the roller. And then now VanVleet's going to peel off and get out to Kyrie Irving as Luka makes this pass. And this was a good defensive possession for the Rockets overall. And VanVleet closes the space, gets out to Irving. But this is just a better offensive play from the Mavs. Irving gets into a triple threat, jab step, shoots over the top with a fade, and knocks it down. The goal, once again, here is to pick on Alperen Şengün in space. By doing so, they involve Grant Williams as a pick-and-pop screener for Luka. And as Luka draws enough attention from Şengün, he throws the behind-the-back pass, and they flow into a get action, getting the handoff back to Luka. With him getting downhill into space, he's playing with pace, waits for Şengün to recover back to Williams deep on the drive, and then Luka uses multiple ball fakes to create enough of a window to get Şengün to recover once again back to Grant Williams, creating a window of opportunity with Dillon Brooks kind of on his hip and not in a position to pressure the finish. Luka just gets right into a right-hand layup, and there's nothing the defense can do at this point. Kyrie Irving initiated this possession and saw that Luka had an advantageous matchup and just trusted him by getting the ball to him early. Now he has Jabari Smith on an island. Luka plays out of the fake, tries to get Jabari Smith to react, and then attacks left and flows right into the step back, clearing space on the shot, and against the contest, he knocks it down. The Mavs were very active, utilizing Grant Williams as a ball screener on this play to get Alperen Şengün to have to work, and it starts with Williams setting a screen for Kyrie Irving. Dillon Brooks is playing off of Luka, helping at the nail, and they're really loading up trying to get Kyrie to pass out of this one. The ball finds Luka on the wing. Dillon Brooks is still the assignment, so Luka brings Williams into the action to set the screen. The Rockets stay in a traditional pick-and-roll coverage with Şengün dropping, and Luka reads this, identifies there isn't a switch coming, and just throws the behind-the-back pass, trusts Williams to knock down the shot, and he ends up just missing this one on the front of the rim. This was another baseline out-of-bounds play that I liked. Luka was able to get into that zoom action once again. The off-ball screener screens Dillon Brooks. The goal is to get him switched off, as always, and Luka gets the handoff from Derek Lively. This puts Fred VanVleet on Luka after the exchange, and he's on the left side of his body, which allows him to attack right, the open space. And Jabari Smith Jr. is sitting in the paint waiting to help. Derek Lively's in the dunker spot. Alperen Şengün has to respect the threat of the pass and has to help the helper, but he's behind Lively on this play as Luka makes the deep spray out to the corner. The goal is to force Derek Jones to shoot for the Rockets defense, so Şengün closes short, and Derek Jones makes the defense pay by knocking it down. The Mavs have been utilizing some horn sets at times to get Luka involvement from the elbow as an off-ball threat. They try to set a cross screen to get Dillon Brooks switched off of Luka, but he fights through the screen. Luka receives the pass from Josh Green. They fake the handoff, and now he has an ISO possession at the top of the key with a lot of space to work with. And this was actually just a good defensive possession from Dillon Brooks. He, absorbs contact, doesn't foul, and Luka has to take a tough falling away jumper and is unable to knock it down. This was an effective overall design, but the shot just didn't fall. This is a great example of the value of putting just a great offensive player into a read and react action, like a zoom action. Here, Tim Hardaway Jr. sets the off-ball screen for Luka before the handoff with Derek Lively, and Jeff Green is hedging, and Luka stays patient after receiving the handoff, fakes the pass to force Dillon Brooks to have to make a split-second choice to commit to an offensive player, and this results in Luka having Green on his right hip, allowing him to attack left. He cuts him off on the drive and gets into a jump stop, plays off of two, and Green just flies by Luka and is able to get into that one-legged jumper in the paint and is able to hit front rim and have the ball bounce in. The Mavericks once again go to a zoom action using Tim Hardaway Jr. as the screener. This gets Dillon Brooks switched off of Luka. Jeff Green was guarding Derek Lively in the action and then gets switched onto Luka after that handoff occurs. And Luka breaks down Green out in space, creates a lot of separation by going between the legs and then forcing Green to flip his hips, try to track the drive before using a between the legs move to get into the step back. And then he just didn't convert on the shot attempt, but it was a good look. The Mavericks play out of a horn set on this one, with Luka Doncic having Dillon Brooks aggressively trying to get into him on the catch. Exum then screens for Luka, and Rashawn Holmes, instead of setting a screen against Fred VanVleet, he slips, and this results in Jabari Smith switching onto Luka, and this was actually a pretty sound defensive possession for the Rockets overall. Alperen Şengün is able to hide successfully defensively, but Luka just makes a great isolation play. He breaks down Jabari Smith out in space and gets into a mid-range step back and knocks it down against the contest. With the Rockets trying to hide Alperen Şengün often, the Mavericks took full advantage in this situation by staying active off the ball. Derek Jones Jr. moved from the dunker spot, relocated to the wing, and this resulted in a breakdown for the Rockets. They didn't communicate. Dante Exum was left completely wide open, with both Aaron Holiday and Şengün basically following Jones to the wing. Exum immediately cut backdoor and was able to just connect with Luka on the lob. The Mavericks begin this possession with Kyrie Irving initiating the play. Luka Doncic is in the weak side corner. They flow into a double-wide pin-down action with Derek Jones and Lively as the screeners. And Jabari Smith ends up making this switch, and he does not maintain proper balance or quality footwork throughout this possession. Luka, as he makes this catch, reads that Jabari Smith is off balance. He's leaving his feet, has his hands in the air. Luka attacks hard left, knowing that Smith is going to be trying to recover throughout this play. And as that happens, he uses Smith's balance against him and gets into the step back, launching going to his left. Smith's completely cleared out of the play, and Luka just knocks down the shot. Once again, the Mavericks go into their double-wide pin-down look for Luka Doncic out of the weak side corner, but this time they add a different layer to it. Luka gives the ball up to Derek Lively and then fakes setting an off-ball screen for Kyrie Irving as if the Mavs are going to get into a zoom action for Irving, and they flow right into a handoff for Luka. And this is a lot of ground to cover for Alperen Şengün, so he makes the switch. And then the Rockets send that late double to avoid giving up the ISO for Luka with the mismatch. And Luka stays patient with both defenders lunging at him, gets the ball to Derek Lively in the middle of the floor, who then plays out of that short roll situation, gets the ball to Derek Jones in the weak side corner with the low defender waiting to help on the drive. And then Jones makes the redrive, gets into the paint, makes the pass out to Tim Hardaway Jr. on the weak side wing, who then makes that extra pass to pop the ball around to Kyrie Irving in that corner. The Rockets handle all these rotations well, and they're able to make a tight contest on the release, and the shot's just offline. The Mavericks play out of a stack pick and roll play to start this possession. Hardaway back screens Alperen Şengün, who then stays attached to Derek Lively, and Luka draws two after going to the right side of the floor, makes the behind-the-back pass to a wide-open Hardaway, who just misses the open three, but the Mavs get the offensive rebound, the ball finds Luka, and he, kills his dribble, attempting to step back, but gets the ball one pass away to Hardaway, who then makes a play out in space, getting into a step back and knocks down the tough shot. The Mavericks don't have to look to switch hunt with Dillon Brooks off the court. They just get the ball to Luka after he begins off the ball, and they look like they're going to flow into a double drag action, but he just rejects the first screen, attacks hard left, and then ends up drawing a foul, playing through contact and getting to the free throw line. With Alperen Şengün once again not guarding the center and trying to handle the four, the Mavericks exploit this to their advantage. They have Grant Williams set an off-ball screen for Kyrie Irving with Dillon Brooks guarding Luka Doncic as the initiator. Luka throws the ball to Irving out in space as he gets to the wing, and Van Vliet has to fight through that screen. And this creates an opportunity for Irving to attack in space. He plays out of a spin move, attacks baseline, and then plays off of two in the paint. It throws off Şengün's timing, and then Irving just finishes with his right hand off the glass. Kyrie Irving begins this play as the initiator. Dillon Brooks is face guarding Luka Doncic, and the Mavs look to get into an off-ball screening action for Luka to make himself available for the pass, and Brooks fights through this, stays attached to him, and Jabari Smith is guarding Lively, who then just spaces out in the dunker spot, and Alperen Şengün is responsible for Grant Williams, but Luka attacks the middle of the floor, draws two, and now as this happens, Grant Williams is setting a flare screen on Fred VanVleet for Kyrie Irving and is left unaccounted for coming off of the release of the screen, and Luka now has Dillon Brooks pinned, backing him down. Şengün is fully focused on help, and Williams is left wide open, and he just misses the open look. This is another play where Luka Doncic is being face guarded off ball to start by Dillon Brooks. This time they get into a delay action. Derek Lively gets into the handoff with Luka. The Rockets switch this one with Jabari Smith now being responsible for guarding Luka in space. And Luka goes between the legs, attacks hard right, and then works his way back into a spin middle, and then plays off of that, uses a fake, makes contact with a chest bump, and then gets the pass out to Grant Williams, who then gets into a get action with Luka to get the ball back. And then Luka just redrives, attacks right, but then gets into a snatch back, and then retreat dribbles back out to the three-point line into a step back and makes the tough shot. The Mavericks fully utilized Luka Doncic as a off-ball threat by having him set the screen in the zoom action initially for Kyrie Irving. There were two defenders in this action with Alperen Şengün and Fred VanVleet that the Mavericks would be more than happy to have switched onto Luka, and in this situation they succeed. Irving gets Dillon Brooks switched onto him and then flares out and serves as a decoy. Derek Lively gets the ball to Luka with Fred VanVleet in the post, and this naturally will result in him drawing two Şengün tries to pressure the ball, but Luka throws the hook pass over the top, one hand, gets it to Lively before the low defender can even react, and then he just finishes the play with the dunk. There's a lot to like about this possession. Luka Doncic is utilized as a decoy on the weak side as an off-ball screener. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a shooting threat that's going to draw some attention, but the defense completely forgets about Derek Lively, who slips and is making himself available on the roll. And this actually is so effective. The Mavericks don't even have to take advantage of Alperen Şengün being the big defender, being put in a ball screening action for Irving. He reads that Lively already has the step ahead of the defense being left unaccounted for, so he doesn't actually use the screen set by Derek Jones. Fred VanVleet assumed that this was going to be utilized and ends up being a step behind Irving on the reject. And Irving just knows that he's going to have to draw enough attention from Şengün before he throws the alley-oop, dials it up perfectly, and Lively finishes it. Dillon Brooks tried to pick up Luka numerous times full court, but one of the pitfalls of that is dying on a screen. Luka is able to get the ball past half court with Brooks trailing, and then just attacks the rim, getting into a left-hand layup. The Mavericks keep it simple on this side, out of bounds, inbounds play. Luka Doncic receives a screen from Dante Exum after he makes that inbounds pass. And this whole time, Dillon Brooks, after having to fight over the screen, is not really on balance. He's having to basically be on his heels as he's trying to track Doncic on the drive. Doncic plays through contact, getting into a snatchback move, and then works his way with the in and out to attack the middle of the floor. Again, Brooks is having to recover this whole sequence, and Luka is able to set up a perfect spin going to the outside as a result, and then finishes the scoop layup deep on the drive. Dante Exum initiates this play. Luka Doncic serves as a decoy with Dillon Brooks face guarding him and just kind of sets a brush screen. And Exum attacks downhill with Jalen Green not being in a position to contain dribble penetration and is able to just draw a foul as help commits deep on the drive. The Mavericks made it a point to make Dillon Brooks really have to work defensively. They set multiple screens for Luka. He fights through both of them, and he just attacks downhill with Brooks on his right hip going left, and then gets into a tough floater, draws the foul, and gets the and one. With Alperen Şengün guarding Richaun Holmes, Luka Doncic brings him into the action to set a ball screen and then attacks downhill. Şengün didn't get to the level quickly enough, which allowed Holmes to get deep into the paint, set a Gortat screen, essentially sealing off Şengün from protecting the rim. Luka gets into a slow step, decelerates, protects the ball, and gets into a floater and converts. Once again, Luka makes this baseline inbounds pass, throws it to Derek Lively, receives that middle pin down from Kyrie Irving, and the Rockets switch this one. Fred VanVleet is now guarding Luka in the middle of the floor. Luka stays patient, waits for the clear out, attacks hard right, plays to that initial contact, and then there's a help defender rotating over, Jabari Smith Jr., looking to get vertical and makes contact with Luka deep on the attempt, and Luka just plays through it and finishes it off the glass. Luka Doncic plays out of the high ball screen on this possession with Derek Lively as the screener, but before they really get into it, Lively flips the screen as Doncic goes between the legs and behind the back on the handle. This is a lot of pressure for Dillon Brooks to have to recover fighting through that screen, so they veer switch this one. Alperen Şengün then gets cleared out by Luka playing with chest contact, lowering the shoulder, and then playing off of 2 feet. With the fake, he's now unbalanced, looking to finish this one. Dillon Brooks tries to pressure this one on the trail, but Luka is just too big and finishes this one, screening him. But they also continued to put Alperen Şengün into the action to exploit him, and they do so by having Luka Doncic start off ball, have Derek Jones, who's being guarded by Şengün, screen for Luka, and Luka receives the ball from Kyrie Irving, and they flow into a screen from Jones, and Luka rejects it, attacks, draws 2 on the drive, in addition to the low defender rotating over. So that's a lot of pressure for him to make a play on the drive. So what he does is he just throws a behind-the-back pass in stride, and no defender is in a position to account for Jones. He's wide open, takes his time, gets into the shot, and makes the defense pay. Once again, the Mavericks put Brooks through a screen, and they have Şengün in the action by having his man set the screen. Luka gets the ball from Kyrie Irving after flaring out to the three-point line, And this time, a variation here is that Kyrie Irving sets the ball screen for Luka. This puts Fred VanVleet on the switch. And with this being a mismatch, Dillon Brooks is helping at the nail, and that's a very dangerous position to be at, to have to recover onto Kyrie Irving, spacing out from the three-point line. And as this live dribble pass is made with Luka's right, Brooks has to make the recovery. Irving sustains the advantage by getting into the shot fake, and now Brooks is opening up his hips as Kyrie is driving, loses balance, and now it's up to Kyrie to finish the play. He gets into a scoop finish and releases it early to get it over the high point contest from Jabari Smith deep on the drive, and the ball rolls in. At this point, the Mavs are essentially spamming having Luka off ball, receiving that screen from Şengün's man to make Dillon Brooks have to fight through something. And here, Luka ends up getting the ball from Kyrie Irving. They again get into that ball screen to force the switch, since it's challenging to avoid switching with two superstars involved in the action. Fred VanVleet is having to guard Luka in space. Luka uses the size advantage, gets into a back down dribble a couple times, works him past the nail, and now he's in a perfect position to get into the drop step finish, and help isn't able to recover in time, and this is another made basket out of this action for the Mavs. At this point, the Rockets don't want to have Fred VanVleet switched onto Luka if they can avoid it, so Dillon Brooks does his best to make that happen. Luka gives it up to Kyrie, gets it back on a handoff. Luka then gets a rescreen from Kyrie, and through all of this, Brooks just continues to fight through it, sticks onto Luka, and then crowds on the contest, with Luka getting into a pull-up three, and this play was kind of just a broken down play without the switch happening for the Mavs. The Mavs salvage this possession by Derek Lively getting active on the offensive boards. The ball gets tipped up, finds Josh Green, who then shovels the ball to Kyrie Irving on a handoff. He gets right into a shot, knocks it down. With Brooks often guarding Luka, it makes the value of having Luka set a ball screen for Kyrie Irving as somewhat of a diminished return. Here, Brooks switches onto Irving and handles him well, tracking him on the drive, but Irving does a great job of selling contact and flopping and gets to the free throw line. But again, having Luka screen in the action mitigates that value, because it often puts the best perimeter defender on whoever receives the screen. The Rockets face a challenging situation with Dillon Brooks fouling out at this point of the game. Fred VanVleet is now the primary defender on Luka, and Kyrie Irving is being guarded by Aaron Holiday. So the Mavericks look to get Irving into the action as a screener. Again, this puts Holiday on Luka, and Holiday does a good job on an island. He absorbs contact from Luka on the initial attack right and is ready to recover on the step back three, and crowds a space, and Luka misses. Luka Doncic initiates this possession and shifts his switch hunting efforts to target Jalen Green. Josh Green, who is being guarded by Jalen Green, comes up to set the ball screen, but the Rockets stifle this initial attempt to get Jalen Green to switch onto Luka by scram switching. Aaron Holiday calls it out as Josh Green is coming up to set that ball screen, and now Aaron Holiday is responsible for him and ends up making that switch with Josh Green setting the ball screen, and Kyrie Irving is now having Jalen Green guarding him, and he directs traffic, telling Josh Green to clear out before setting a ball screen for Luka. This finally gets Jalen Green switched onto Luka, who then is attacking hard left. The Rockets are aggressive, showing help with Fred VanVleet at the top of the charge circle, pre-rotated. They're helping the helper as well, so the paint is overloaded, and Luka gets into a one-legged fall-away jumper after a chest bump, and Jalen Green blocks this shot. Luka ends up coming up with the ball after an attempt to save it by Aaron Holiday, and this is when Luka gets into that sky hook and just makes a play after it breaks down. Kyrie Irving initiates this play. Luka Doncic is the first screener in a double drag sequence, and the Rockets don't really fight through these screens. Irving is able to pull up from basically the 4-point line, and the shot rattles in and out, but the approach led to a clean look for one of their superstars. If you made it through to this point of the video, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to watch this all the way through. I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it if you feel like it, and stay tuned for more content similar to this throughout the Mavericks season.